One of the most frustrating realities of our day is the ability of government control and bureaucracy to stifle American ingenuity and important solutions we devise in areas like healthcare and energy production and our schools. And my next guest says we are on the edge of a breakout, incredible advances of human achievement, and yet we contend with what he calls prison guards of the past who are trying to stop us. So we're going to be talking about this today with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. He is a host of Crossfire on CNN and is out with a new book. It's called Breakout, Pioneers of the Future, Prison Guards of the Past, and the Epic Battle That Will Decide America's Fate. And it's great to have you back, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for being with us.
Listen, I'm delighted to be with you and to talk about ideas. And I do think that we're at the edge of an extraordinary period of American achievement. And if you get out of Washington and you look around, it is amazing how many people are, in fact, doing the right thing and doing it in exciting ways, whether it's a self-driving car, online learning, breakthroughs in energy, regenerative medicine. I mean, just every time you turn around, there's something exciting happening.
Well, there is. Now, on the issue of medicine, I thought this was really heartbreaking. I was reading this story you tell at the beginning of the book about this girl, Abigail Burroughs, and how this bureaucracy ended up stopping her from getting a drug that could have saved her life. Give that as an example, because I think that's a really strong story.
Well, the scientific basis of the drug was discovered 3 years before she was born. The ability to apply that drug to her particular disease came 11 years after she died. And almost all of that was a function of the way in which the United States today runs its Food and Drug Administration, which is a terribly destructive system. When I talk to people about regenerative medicine, which is almost like science fiction, in regenerative medicine, they take your cells, they culture them to get a large number of cells. They then take 3D printing, and they print out a kidney or a heart or whatever you need. And this is all cutting edge being done around America right this minute. Every regenerative scientist I talk to says, the Food and Drug Administration is so bad that they will almost certainly see their scientific breakthroughs reach patients in China or India or Singapore or Europe before the United States. Now, that's what I mean by a prison guard of the past. Here's an agency which should be accelerating innovation to help you and me have better lives, and instead they're a major impediment.
Well, why is that? A lot of people wonder, why wouldn't the FDA, yes, there's the problem of bureaucracy all the time in the government, but why wouldn't the FDA have it as priority one to make sure that these drugs get to people quickly?
Well, there are a couple of things. There's just sort of the principle of bureaucracy. First of all, the bureaucracies have people in them who may not have gone to school since the development of regenerative medicine. These may be people whose idea of biology is 30 or 40 years out of date. Second, they have their own internal memory. So the FDA, for example, really focused most of its energy on regulating drugs. Well, when you regulate drugs, you look at how many thousand people tried it, what were the outcomes. It's a quantitative analysis. If you have regenerative medicine, if you walk in and say, boy, I'm about to go in kidney dialysis, I really need a new kidney. The test case is one person. Can they grow your cells to create your kidney to put it back in you so that you're healthy? It's either 0 or 100, but it's not a quantitative analysis. Well, none of that fits the FDA's mindset. The other thing to remember is if you are making money out of the past, you want to actively stop things that will put you out of business. I always tell people, if we'd had government this big in the 1840s, the stagecoaches would have had a lobbyist to get a law passed that said that railroads could not go faster than a horse can run because it would be unfair competition.
That's so true. That is so true. What about Obamacare? We know what a disaster this is. How is this kind of putting the whole issue of Breakout on a collision course?
Well, let me say, first of all, that I think Obamacare, the act of the Obama Democrats in destroying the Senate with their elimination of the filibuster, which is really going to be across the whole system, actually, ironically, will guarantee the repeal of Obamacare. Because the first time there's a Republican House, Senate, and President, they'll just repeal it. In the old system, there would have been enough Democrats left to slow down and fight over Obamacare, even if they're in the minority. The Democrats have now paved the way so that in the first 100 days of a Republican president, the number of things that will be done will be astonishing because there will be no filibuster to slow them down. I mean, it's truly one of the historic moments. It's a huge mistake. It's terrible for the country. But the liberals have now set the stage for their own repudiation.
Well, that's so interesting, and I think you're absolutely right. And what hypocrites, because this was the same president who thought this was a terrible idea just a few years ago, and now it's wonderful. It's what the founders would have wanted.
Well, having destroyed the coal industry, having lied to the country about Benghazi, having now crippled the health industry, they've now reached out to destroy the traditional Senate because Obamaism is just the constant, unending increase of power.
Well, we'll be back. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, my guest. We're talking about his book, Breakout. We'll return right after this. We're back on the Janet Mefferd Show. My guest, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. She is out with a new book called Breakout, Pioneers of the Future, Prison Guards of the Past, and the Epic Battle That Will Decide America's Fate. Mr. Speaker, you talk about a lot of different areas. We were discussing a little bit about health care and how Obamacare will make things worse. How do you anticipate that even as you have these people in all kinds of wonderful fields in America coming through with these great new developments and ingenuity and projects that will benefit mankind, having this collision course with the government bureaucracy, how do you anticipate Obamacare is going to make things worse for the medical industry and the advancements in medicine?
Well, look, anytime you build a large centralized bureaucracy and anytime you start cutting spending while putting more and more money into that bureaucracy, you're going to create disasters. I mean, what they've done in Medicare, for example, you now have AARP and United Health in Florida have eliminated the Mefferd Cancer Treatment Center, which is the finest treatment center in Florida. You can't go there anymore under their wraparound policy because the Obama system has cut the spending so dramatically. And so what you're seeing happen is that centralized bureaucrats who suffer no consequence make decisions that change and risk the lives of millions of people, and they have no idea what they're doing. That's the whole point of the disaster over the web system. The website is just the tip of an iceberg of incompetence. And if you can't even build a website in the age of Amazon and Google and Facebook, why would we think you can run the healthcare of 315 million people?
Well, it was interesting. Yesterday, Alan West came out with a piece, may have been a day or two ago, where he said, was this really incompetence or was this by design? What are your thoughts on the meltdown of the website?
No, I think this is, in fact, incompetence. I do think there's a large part of the Obama faction that would like to go to single-payer system and would basically say to us, gee, now that government's failed, what we really need is more government. I mean, there's no question about that. But I do think that the president also understands that they are now doing so badly. They are beginning to destroy public faith in government. He may end up being the greatest lesson in conservatism in modern times and has already passed Jimmy Carter in his educational ability to convince the rest of us that liberalism doesn't work.
Well said. What about education? There's a lot of flap out there about Common Core and the federal government intruding into local education and standards that are going to make education worse. And we have teachers' unions who really object to school choice. How is the breakout being impeded by the bureaucracy in the area of education?
Well, it's a perfect example of prison guards of the past. Everybody who's listening to us can go online and see a firm called Udacity. It's the word audacity without the A. Udacity is a firm which just signed a contract with Georgia Tech to take a $70,000 master's degree in computer science and turn it into a $7,000 online course. Now, think about that difference in how much you save for student loans, or if you're an adult and you can't afford to move to Atlanta, they've now made it possible for you to take this online program and get a master's degree without having to give up your job or move. Take a look at one of my favorites is a place called Duolingo, Duolingo. It has 7 different languages that are taught by computer for free. And imagine that. Imagine you could say, my child goes to school where they teach 7 different languages. Well, you can go on your smartphone and Duolingo by itself. This doesn't count other systems that people see and know about, like Rosetta Stone, which you pay for. But this is a free system. Go to Khan Academy, K-A-H-N. Khan is a financier who was teaching his nephews math and did so by putting it on YouTube. It began to get wildly popular. They now have 3,000 hours of material and 10 million visitors a month, and it's totally free.
Wow.
So you're seeing breakthroughs. Kaplan University, the second largest online education system in the world, is doing a whole series of experiments and what's the fastest people can learn, and how do you organize the material? Because it no longer has to be sitting in a lecture hall for 50 minutes taking notes. There's so many different ways to do it, and you can organize it so you can do it 24/7, and you can learn at your convenience wherever you happen to be.
Yeah, it's terrific. Just the whole advent of the internet has changed the whole face of education, as has the charter school movement, private schools. But people are really worried as the education system is more and more overwhelmed with governmental control. Are we, in fact, going to have the freedoms that we've had in the past for private schools?
Well, that's why it's a huge fight. When you have, on the one hand, the schools of education, the departments of education, and the teachers union, and you have, on the other hand, everybody who cares about learning. And so you're going to have a huge brawl in which the prison guards of the past, the teachers union in LA Unified, for example, the largest school district in America, soundly defend the right of incompetent people to teach, even if it destroys children's lives. And this is going to be an ongoing fight. I mean, one of the great signs of hope is that Governor Jindal in Louisiana and Governor Walker in Wisconsin have really made dramatic breakthroughs for opening up the system of learning for K through 12 in ways that are historic and that will become a big part of the national dialogue.
Yes, for sure. Now, another area you talk about, which I find extremely fascinating, is NASA and the exploration in space. And you talk about how you've wanted a manned base on the moon and all of these ideas that we've had for the space program. But the space program of late has seemed to go in the other direction under Barack Obama. What are your thoughts on the future of the space program in America?
Well, it's really a long process that precedes Obama. NASA became a bureaucracy. What had been in the 1960s this extraordinarily entrepreneurial, daring institution. And remember, John F. Kennedy says in May of 1961, we will put a man on the moon in this decade. And by July of 1969, we met his challenge. Now, when he made the challenge, we didn't have the rockets, we didn't have the experience, we didn't have the astronauts, and we created all that in 8 years. We then became bureaucratic, and we became expensive, and we became slow, and we became inward-looking. And as a result, NASA has done as much to cripple us going into space as anybody. And it's really tragic. And you find people inside NASA who love the adventure and love the idea, and they are totally frustrated by the bureaucratic structure. So what I was describing was entrepreneurial space. Ironically, shortly after I made a speech down on the Space Coast of Florida and had several of my opponents in my judgment, rather idiotically attacking me and distorting the whole conversation. We had the co-founders of Google announce that they were going to look into mining asteroids. We've had the founder of Virgin Airlines, Richard Branson, announced that he was developing a near-space experience and he was going to take his entire family on the first flight. We've had the private sector developer of the Tesla announced that he is building a series of private rockets that are rapidly going to become major vehicles for getting into space. When you look around, you realize that outside of government, there's a tremendous amount of excitement and energy about going into space. And if we would take 10% of NASA's budget and turn it into prizes, we would be astonished how many people would, in fact, participate in the great adventure.
Well, we'll be back. Former Speaker Newt Gingrich with us. We'll return right after this. We're back on the Janet Mefferd Show. My guest, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, out with a new book. It's called Breakout. Will the prison guards of the past keep us from a new era of American greatness? You have some great ideas in here, Mr. Speaker, about how we can deal with the prison guards of the past. We have a lot of obstacles to overcome in order to let American ingenuity soar again. But where do we begin? How do you think we should begin to tackle the problem?
Well, I think we begin by recognizing the need for a new language. We talk about pioneers of the future and prison guards of the past because we want people to look around and say, well, which are you looking at now? Is this somebody who is developing a better future? Or is this somebody who's crippling the future by protecting the past? We want to move the language of Washington from right, left to future, past. I'm developing a paper right now on the idea of foresight hearings rather than oversight hearings. You know, when you hear, for example, that the Internal Revenue Service sent $4 million to people as refunds for their income tax to people who shouldn't get it, including 355 checks sent to one address in Shanghai and over 600 checks sent to one address in Lithuania. You know that American Express, Visa, and MasterCard all would have caught that almost instantly. And so we need a whole new approach to hearings that starts with who are the best at this field, what are they doing, and how do we replace the failed systems, not just have oversight where we play gotcha and the bureaucrat comes in and the politicians beat them up and the bureaucrat leaves and nothing changes.
Yeah, the mindset needs to change. What about reducing the size of the bureaucracy? That also is something a lot of Americans want, to get rid of huge government.
In every business I know of, they've had a dramatic replacement of people with all sorts of capacity for information and for technology, and frankly for allowing citizens to do a lot of things on their own. Think about how many automatic teller machines there are worldwide, and if the police, if the prison guards in the past had their way, you'd have had a teller standing next to each machine, because after all, you can't unionize a machine.
It's so true. It's back to your stagecoach example.
That's right.
Yeah.
So think about how many places people are their own tellers, and you even pay for the privilege of being your own teller.
Yeah. It's exactly right. And I think so many Americans who have seen this country flourish over the years want to see that American greatness flourish again. And just wonderful ideas in this book. The name of the book, Breakout, Pioneers of the Future, Prison Guards of the Past, and the Epic Battle That Will Decide America's Fate, by my guest, former Speaker Newt Gingrich. And as always, Mr. Speaker, it has just been wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. It's great talking with you.